Today's guide will assist you in your preparation for the final research paper of the semester. You will be required to provide all of your sources through a bibliography page. As you're designing your research, you will be confronted with information from a number of sources. It will be your job to critically evaluate the source for information in order to determine its validity. The objective of today's lesson is to prepare you to be able to critically evaluate the source of information for your research paper. Students today have information overload. Information is all around us every day. We see and hear new information from a variety of sources: television, radio, books, billboards, newspapers, magazines, and websites. Since there's so much information to sort through, there are two critical questions that we must ask about the information we encounter, especially when doing research. The first question we need to ask ourselves is this information relevant for our information need? The second question, if so, how credible is it? Assessing relevancy is the first step in determining whether or not the information is valuable to you. If it's not applicable for your information need, there's no need to further evaluate it. Further evaluation. If the information is relevant, you need to look at other evaluation criteria to examine its quality. To do so, you can use something called the CRAAP test. This test is an easy device or mnemonic to help you remember the following evaluation criteria: currency, or C; R, relevancy; A, accuracy; A, authority; and P, purpose. Currency. When was it written or updated? If you need current information, checking the date of the source is very important. On the other hand, sometimes older information works fine for certain topics. For example, a current source is crucial if your research deals with the newest research on advances in the treatment of type 2 diabetes. Another example is an older source may be helpful if you're researching the history of the Motion Picture Association of American Film Rating System. Relevancy. Why is this information useful to me? As we already discussed, relevancy is important because it's the first step to determining whether the information you find is pertinent or what you're really looking for. For example, a source detailing the link between gambling and divorce may. Accuracy. Where does this information come from? Are there additional resources cited? Accuracy is important because you need correct information to make good decisions. Also, if you present inaccurate information, others may question your own credibility. For example, if you tell readers that bug spray is 100% effective in preventing bug bites, you are providing inaccurate information and disease may be the result. Authority. Who wrote this site? Is he or she an expert? Authority refers to the reviewing of an author's credentials. You need to determine whether the person presenting the information has the knowledge and background to be a good source. Example, if you're writing a paper on the health risks of tattoos and body piercings, a doctor would have more authority than a website provided by a professional tattoo artist. Finally, purpose. Why was this site or information written? You need to carefully examine the purpose or the bias of the information presented. Is the author trying to entertain, educate, sell you a product, or sway you to a particular point of view. Even if a source portrays a particular viewpoint, it may still be valid, but you must be able to recognize bias, even if it's adequately supported. For example, if you're looking for a website containing information on identity theft, keep in mind that some of the pages might be trying to sell you identity theft protection. In summary, when encountering any type of information, it is important to evaluate its quality. To perform this evaluation, you can use the CRAAP mnemonic device. We will now practice what we've learned using the 21st Century Information Fluency website. Today we're going to practice our ability to identify bias in a source. We will be identifying bias from an excerpt of an article called "The Beast as Saint: The Truth About Martin Luther King Jr." by Kevin Alfred Strom. First, we'll read the resource. Now that you've finished reading it for the first time, let's reread for specific sources of potential bias. The first question is asking us to look for exaggerated language. After reading through the first sentence, every January, the media go into a kind of almost spastic frenzy of adulation for the so-called Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As we identify the exaggerated language in this sentence, this phrase, almost spastic frenzy of adulation, seems to me to have an elevated amount of exaggerated language. Unbalanced information. Let's reread the paragraph for information that seems to sway the reader in one way or another. This paragraph seems strongly against Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So I believe it has an unbalanced amount of information. Turns out the information is in fact heavily biased against Martin Luther King Jr. Prejudice. This one is fairly easy to read as you reread the paragraph. Prejudice means, is it for or against a certain topic? If we're reading this, we would have to say the prejudice is against Martin Luther King Jr. And at an elevated level, a moderate, low, or none, again, I'd have to choose an elevated level. Product sales. One of the key factors in identifying bias in a source is whether or not they're trying to sell you something. In this case, no evidence of product sales is identified. Emotional response. This question is simply a question to identify whether you as the reader had an elevated, moderate, low, or no emotional response. In this case, I'm going to choose elevated as the words were strongly used and there was a strong source of prejudice. Congratulations, we've practiced the first evaluation challenge. You can now go back to the menu and practice on your own. There are 3 other modules that you may use to identify bias. Thank you for your time today. We'll continue to evaluate our sources critically and help you identify proper research techniques for your final paper.